playing sort of almost a sort of a pastiche of what he really is. Well, that's kind of what Freddie was naturally. I sometimes wonder if he would have been able to get away with that today. If certainly, I mean, if Queen were to be starting out today, they probably wouldn't even get a record deal. I mean, just because of the nature of the industry these days.
In 1980, Queen released The Game, which would turn out to be one of their most successful albums, going 4 times platinum in the USA alone.
By now they were huge in America. How about we become a disco group? He was spending a great deal of time at places like Studio 54 and their equivalents around the world. By now he was very much out of the closet, as it were.
The minute he grew that moustache, there was no getting away from the fact. But again, it was really just tell us something we don't know.
The whole glam rock thing paved the way for Freddie and Queen, because they were all camp. I mean, they weren't all gay, you know, sweet and anything but they certainly didn't try to hide the fact whether you thought they were or not. You know, that didn't matter. So Freddie, I think initially, nobody questioned what he was, you know, whether he was gay or not. And it was to his credit that he used that to kind of say, hey, so what? I'm gay, and you know, that's fine, and paved the way for many other artists, because I think in the wake of that, Elton came out and everything, may have not have done.
Although close friends always knew Freddie was a very quiet and private man, throughout Queen's heyday, he was nonetheless a very outgoing public figure, always inclined to enjoy the trappings of success.
The whole kind of sex and drugs and rock and roll thing is now regarded as very sleazy. But back in the 70s, there was a much, Freddie would bring a much more artistic aesthetic to the whole thing. You know, the parties were always beautifully, rooms would be beautifully decorated. There would always be fresh flowers and always the best champagne. And they were very fond of having, long before I'd ever seen this at other parties, you know, they were very fond of having, you know, I forget what you call them, but they'd have like naked models that would blend into the background because they'd been painted certain colours. So you'd be walking past a blue wall and suddenly a blue body would ask you if you'd like some champagne. Or I remember once they brought in what looked like a huge blancmange. I mean, it was about 6 foot tall, on a carried, you know, by, you know, men in togas, you know, and actually what it was a pile of naked bodies that eventually kind of unfolded like a flower, you know. As the evenings would wear on, this would become less polite, but, you know, it was always done with a great sense of humour and a very arch kind of take on things.
I think it's very important to remember that when you talk about Freddie Mercury's excesses in the 70s and perhaps 80s, to remember that he wasn't doing anything different to anybody else who would have been in his position would have done. This train of thought that because Freddie died from HIV and AIDS, that, you know, it was all down to the fact that he was a naughty boy in the 70s, you know, and it's like, well, you know, Freddie wasn't a drug addict, he wasn't an alcoholic. He appeared to lead an enjoyable and varied sex life. Nothing ever clouded the work that he did with Queen.
Body language. Body language. Body language.
The widespread and enduring popularity of Freddie Mercury was based largely on his reputation for playing live, when he would always produce the most fantastically energetic theatrical performances.
After Elvis, the most impersonated, you know, for lookalikes are Freddie Mercury, and God, there are legions of them out there.
Firstly, you've got to look right. So it's a constant problem to keep the weight off. So, and obviously with the costumes you had, you've got a head start. You know exactly what you've got to wear. So get the look right. Obviously, I don't look like Freddie Mercury normally, so there's a lot of work goes on with the makeup, false teeth, which change the shape of my face and help me sing more like Freddie. It makes me open my mouth. Secondly, the voice, at least the live performance voice, which was slightly different to his recording voice. But you've got to have the power of the voice. And then thirdly, as much as you can, the charisma and the technique and the physical side of it.
Obviously, he's got this huge vocal range, which took me a good sort of 6 to 8 months to sort of get under my belt. Still learning now, still listening to a lot of Queen stuff, learning new tricks.
There's the Freddie stance, which is, I imagine, ballet-based at rest. The spin out, and there's the spin in. I mean, it's famous. Everyone knows the postures. And there's lots of little funny runs. Yeah, there's lots to work with. He was very physical, and just lots of, and all this sort of thing, and all with attitude. But if you look at the live videos and the live performances, where he's been on the road for 30 days, 2 hours a night, it's either gone or he's not trusting it. So he's singing the low falsetto parts in hard voice and sometimes dropping off the notes altogether. Open up your mind and let me step inside. You see how it's breaking? It's a gentle note and it's breaking because of the wear and tear on my voice. Inside, it's gone. So to get around that, you sing it hard. Open up your mind and let me step inside. And that's what he would do live. It's a difference.
Freddie's distinctive voice was in no small part due to his prominent front teeth, a trademark he chose never to change.
The fact that Freddie had protruding teeth definitely contributed to his style of singing, his voice, his enunciation, his phrasing. Because I know for myself, I've had false teeth made, which are these, to help me look and feel more like Freddie. So as soon as I put these in, the shape of my face changes. And I immediately speak louder and open my mouth and have to sing past the teeth, as he did. And they helped me become Freddie.
While he will always be best remembered as the lead singer with Queen, it is sometimes overlooked that Freddie was also an incredibly diverse and gifted songwriter.
We actually forget that a great deal of work, a great deal of artistry, a great deal of talent went into those incredible songs. He tended to write on piano, but he could also write fully aware that he's got one of the greatest guitarists in the world on stage with him. He could write for guitar, he could write harmony vocals, he could write strings, stuff that he didn't play but could sing for you and had in his head. He could also write extremely quickly. I mean, famously, he always claimed he wrote Crazy Little Thing Called Love while taking a bath and drinking champagne. He always used to tell friends that Bohemian Rhapsody was written at the piano while he was getting a blowjob. So suddenly, Somebody to Love, if you listen to that, there's a great deal of Aretha Franklin in there. People still think of it as a kind of in the same vein as Bohemian Rhapsody, but actually go back and listen to it, and you've got Memphis soul going on right in the middle there.